5:50 a.m. No alarm. Your body just does this now, has for 6 years, ever since the number stopped needing you to set one. Coffee, same mug, chipped on the handle in a way you've never bothered fixing. You sit at the kitchen table in the dark for a few minutes before turning on any lights, not because you're saving electricity. You stopped needing to save electricity a long time ago, just because the dark is quiet and you like sitting in things that are quiet. The house is 1,800 square feet, 3 bedrooms, one of which has been an office for so long you had to think for a second the last time someone asked how many bedrooms it technically has. You bought it 14 years ago for $189,000 in a neighborhood nobody would call up and coming, mostly because it was never trying to be anything other than what it already was. The gutters need cleaning. A guy down the street would do it for $85. You'll do it yourself Saturday, not to save the money, just because some part of you still likes proving, to nobody in particular, that you can. $3,340,000. That's the number this morning, give or take whatever the futures market decided to do overnight while you slept. You check it the way you check the weather, 90 seconds, out of habit rather than hunger. $2.1 million across 3 index funds you haven't touched in 14 years. $640,000 in a taxable brokerage, the bridge account, the one that lets you have already quit a job most people would call impossible to leave. $410,000 in the house, paid off 9 years ago, a modest 3-bedroom in a zip code nobody's ever been impressed by. $190,000 in cash and short-term treasuries, 18 months of expenses sitting there doing almost nothing, which is exactly its job. You close the laptop. The market opens in 3 hours. You will do nothing about it, the same way you've done nothing about it for 14 years running. You put on the same style of shirt you've worn to work for a decade, for identical ones hanging in a row, a decision you made once so you'd never have to make it again. You drive a 2016 Accord with 140,000 miles, paid for in cash the day you bought it, the Bluetooth cutting out intermittently in a way you've simply stopped noticing. At the light 2 blocks from the office, a new Range Rover pulls up beside you, glossy black, temp tags still in the window. You do the math without meaning to, a reflex 14 years old now. Financed, almost certainly, something near $1,400 a month for 6 years. You're not judging the guy. You're just aware, the way you're aware of most things now, quietly, without needing to say it out loud to anyone. You still work. Director of Operations, 19 years at the same company, $138,000 a year, real money by any normal measure, not remotely the number that actually built the $3.3 million. Nobody at the office has any reason to suspect the man with the same coffee thermos every single day could write a check for the building's entire parking structure without blinking. You like the work. That's the part people never believe when you tell them. You're not there because you need the paycheck. The paycheck is pure surplus now, has been for years, which changes something specific about how you sit in meetings. When a VP proposes a plan you think is wrong, you say so, plainly, calmly, the way a person can only say things plainly when nothing in the room can actually threaten them. 2 years ago, they offered you the VP title outright, a 35% raise wrapped around triple the meetings and a corner office you never asked for. You said no thank you, and your own boss looked at you the way people look at someone declining a winning lottery ticket. The raise would have moved your retirement timeline up by maybe 6 months. The stress that came with it would have taken years off the other end, the kind of years nobody puts a dollar figure on until they're the ones missing them. Mid-morning, a younger analyst named Priya catches you refilling your coffee. She's sharp, 25, visibly exhausted in the specific way people are exhausted when the exhaustion is financial and not physical. She asks, half joking, if you have some secret, because you always seem so unbothered by everything. You could tell her the number. You don't, you never do, not to anyone at that office, not once in 19 years. Instead you tell her 2 sentences someone told you at 23, on a loading dock, between deliveries. Pay yourself first, automatically, before the money has a chance to become anything else. And never carry debt on anything that doesn't grow in value while you sleep. She asks if that's really it. You tell her that's really it, that everything else is just commentary dressed up as strategy. That afternoon you forward her a book, the same one somebody handed you across a loading dock 22 years ago, dog-eared and unremarkable looking, the kind of gift that never announces how much it's actually worth. You don't tell her why you're sending it. You don't need to. Sometimes the most important transfer of wealth in a person's life happens in an email with no subject line at all. Lunch is leftovers from Sunday, $2.80 a serving by your own rough math, eaten at your desk while two co-workers order $22 delivery and complain, in the same breath, about how expensive everything's gotten. You used to feel something close to superiority about this contrast. You don't anymore. Somewhere around your first $500,000, the superiority burned off entirely and something closer to simple preference took its place. You're not eating leftovers to prove a point to anyone in this building. You genuinely don't want the $22 version more than you want the leftovers. That distinction took a decade to actually believe. Your phone buzzes at 1:40. Your brother. His transmission died, quoted at $2,600. He doesn't have sitting anywhere close to reachable. You hear the specific strain in his voice, the tone of someone rehearsing an apology for a problem that isn't actually a character flaw. You tell him you'll send it within the hour. He starts to say he'll pay you back. You tell him it's not a loan, transmissions fail, that's not a moral failing, that's just a car being a car. You transfer the money from the cash account before you've even finished the sentence. $2,600 is 0.078% of $3.3 million. For your brother, it was the difference between making it to work next week and not. No index fund has ever paid you a return like the relief in someone's voice when an emergency simply stops existing mid-sentence. You remember exactly what that particular kind of call sounds like from the other side of it, because you made a version of it yourself once, at 26, asking your own father for $400 you never actually needed to ask for out loud, and the shame of that call lasted considerably longer than the $400 itself ever did. You've never told your brother that memory. You just make sure, every time his version of that call comes through, that the shame gets to skip a generation this time. Mid-afternoon, a weak moment. A jacket you've quietly wanted for over a year drops to $340 on sale. You could buy it the way other people buy a coffee. You put it in the cart anyway, out of habit, then run the same 3 questions you've run for a decade now. Will you still want it in 30 days? Are you buying the object or the feeling the object is supposed to produce? Who, exactly, are you buying it to be seen by? You sit with the 3rd question the longest, the way you always do, and the honest answer, the way it usually is strangers, people who will glance at the jacket for 4 seconds and think nothing further about it at all. You close the tab. Not from willpower. From simple recognition that the trade isn't actually worth what it costs. You quit checking finance content back in 2017, cold, all of it, and your actual returns improved within the year, which tells you everything you need to know about what that content was actually selling. At your desk, a co-worker 2 rows over is trading options on his phone between meetings, jaw tight, thumb moving fast. You feel something close to tenderness watching him, because you were him once, for about 7 months in your late 20s, and it cost you $9,400 to learn you were the product being sold, not the customer being served. You leave work at 5:15, same time you always do, no ambition left in the building to chase past that hour. Your neighbor Dale is out front hosing down a boat that hasn't left his driveway in 3 months. Dale has the boat, 2 SUVs both leased, and a home equity line he opened last spring that he mentioned, once, a little too casually, at a barbecue. Dale makes more than you do on paper. Dale, by your own quiet estimate, could not survive 4 months without a paycheck landing on schedule. You don't think you're better than Dale. His boat makes memories your spreadsheet has no column for. But you watched your own father get laid off at 51 with $1,100 and a face you still remember exactly, and at 19 you made yourself a promise in that kitchen that you've kept, quietly, every single payday since. Dale waves you over to admire a new fishing rod, genuinely excited about it in a way that's hard not to like him for, and you spend 10 minutes standing in his driveway nodding along, asking the right questions, meaning every bit of the enthusiasm even though none of it is a language you speak fluently yourself anymore. Dale's not wrong about anything. He's just playing a different game than you are, with a different scoreboard, and you've stopped needing his scoreboard to make sense to you in order to genuinely like the man keeping it. Dinner is with your wife, the same modest kitchen table you bought used 20 years ago. She's the reason any of this actually held together, not the spreadsheet, her. On your second date, over cheap tacos, she told you she had $4,000 saved and an actual plan for it, and you knew, somewhere in that sentence, this was the person you wanted managing a life alongside. Every first Sunday, 30 minutes, coffee, numbers on the table, no ambushes, no secrets kept for later. Most money fights aren't actually about money. They're about surprises, and the two of you deleted the surprises from your marriage over 2 decades ago and never quite let them back in. Tonight she tells you about a co-worker of hers going through a messy divorce, half the fight apparently over a joint account neither person had looked at honestly in years, and you both go quiet for a moment, not because it threatens anything between you, but because you recognize, from a safe distance, exactly the kind of slow erosion the two of you spent 2 decades actively refusing to let happen. She reaches over and squeezes your hand once, without saying anything else about it, and you understand the gesture completely without needing a single additional word attached to it. After dinner you walk your usual 2 miles, the same loop you've walked most evenings for 9 years. A podcast episode you half listened to that morning asked its guest what their number was, when enough finally becomes enough. You passed your own number close to $1 million ago and nothing changed the day you crossed it, no confetti, no different version of yourself waiting on the other side. The number just got bigger, and you were still the same person walking the same loop past the same 3 mailboxes you've memorized without meaning to. You read in bed for 20 minutes before your eyes give out. Tomorrow, one meeting, a dentist appointment you're mildly dreading, your niece's 9th birthday. There's a 529 account for her nobody in the family knows about yet, growing quietly since the week she was born, and someday a letter's going to tell her exactly what's been happening in the background of her entire childhood. That will be the loudest thing your money has ever said to anyone. Today you earned $530, spent $61, gave away $2,600, and walked away from a $340 jacket. Nobody clapped. Nobody knows any of it happened, not the number, not the transmission, not the jacket you didn't buy. Tomorrow the market opens, rises, or falls the way it always does, and you'll do nothing about it, beautifully, the same as every day before this one. Somewhere tonight, a 23-year-old is standing on a loading dock listening to someone explain 2 sentences he doesn't yet understand the weight of: pay yourself first and never carry debt on anything that doesn't grow. He'll forget most of what happens this week. He has no idea yet that this particular sentence is the only one that's going to matter in 30 years, or that the version of him sitting quietly at a kitchen table 3 decades from now will owe this exact ordinary Tuesday everything, and never once think to mention it to anyone at all. He'll go home tonight and think about something else entirely, a girl he likes, a game he wants to watch, the ordinary noise that fills a 23-year-old's head on any given evening. The sentence will sit there quietly in the background, unexamined, the way most sentences do the day someone actually hears the one that's going to define them. Nobody rings a bell when it happens. Nobody tells you, in the moment, that you just heard the only piece of advice you were ever actually going to need. You just go back to your coffee, the way he did, the way you did, the way somebody else is doing tonight in a kitchen exactly like this one, and let the sentence do its quiet, patient work completely unsupervised.